My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
We acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Welcome to This Song Is Yours, a music podcast where we chat to a new guest each week, talk about their life and creative endeavours, and talk to them about some of the music they love. Our show works by chatting to our guests about music, their songwriting techniques, and occasionally getting them to make you a playlist of the songs they love. Welcome to episode 194. I'm your host, Simon Fink. Our guest today is Tyrone Noonan. The George frontman is back on the road with his sister, frontwoman Katie Noonan, to celebrate the 20th anniversary of their debut record, Polyserena. In today's episode, we're speaking with Tyrone about the success of the record 20 years on, how the industry has shifted since then, and touring with family once again. Here we go. Our guest today is one of the founding members of Australian indie rock band George. The band released their debut record, Polyserena, 20 years ago, and it debuted at number 1, which was only the 10th time that an Aussie band had achieved that feat. Over the next few weeks, they're touring the country to celebrate and play Polyserena in full. Please welcome to This Song Is Yours, Tyrone Noonan. Hello, how are we?
Hi, Simon. How are you going, mate?
Very well, thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, good. Lovely sunny day here in Brisbane.
I was going to say that it looks like there's quite a lovely blue sky behind you in that view of yours.
Absolutely.
We very much appreciate your time today. It is an exciting time, exciting week for yourself. For a lot of people who might not be aware, you're currently in the midst of celebrating the 20th anniversary of Polyserena, the debut album from George. Firstly, congratulations. This is a huge milestone.
Oh, thank you very much. Yes, it's been an absolutely wonderful experience so far.
It is an incredible record. I know that personally speaking, as a young teen in the early 2000s, at that time, this record was a huge kind of record for people like myself and like-minded people into indie music, pop music. I feel like the album covers quite a lot of ground, which I want to get into a little bit later. But for you, how are you feeling looking back and being nostalgic about this? How are you feeling with this album now?
Well, what's really exciting is that, playing these songs again, it doesn't feel like we're playing tired old music. It still seems to sound fresh for some reason, which I think at the time, we were trying to make the most unique music we could. And I guess as a result of that, it maybe wasn't really following any kind of, necessary musical trends at the time. And I think maybe that's the reason why it doesn't sound dated now. But, also I think adding to that is the youthful exuberance of my wonderful nephew Dexter on drums. It's just amazing as well. So I think, there's that youthful energy as well that's happening too, which is great.
100%. I in preparation for today, I did kind of go back and have a look at the charts or what was happening in music around that time in 2001, 2002.
Yep.
And there's a lot of Creed, there's a lot of Kid Rock, there's a lot of other artists which I think might be very dated now, but I would agree that there was nothing kind of like this before or after the album either, that it kind of stands out as its own unique record from that time.
Well, that's great to hear that, because that's what we were aiming for. So it's fantastic to hear that other people thought that too, Yeah,
of course. Was there ever any thought at that time when you're about to release an album, was there ever any thought at that time? Worry, concerns? Obviously, you're not going to be a Creed, Kid Rock tribute band, but any thoughts of what if this doesn't work out? What if it doesn't kind of fit in with any of our contemporaries?
At the time, no, we didn't really think about that, to be honest. We were just kind of doing our own thing. We were never really part of like any kind of scene or anything like that. You know, we just kind of grew our own little fan base. I mean, we were pretty lucky from the start because at the start of the band, we started out, I think, as an 11-piece, and then we got down to a 7-piece, and we were a 7-piece for quite a while, and that included 2 sets of siblings, including the Stewart twins, Nick and James. James is you know, a TV celebrity. He's on Home and Away these days. But at the time he was studying acting, and, you know, actors and other creatives like that understand that, you know, their fellow artists need support. And so we had a kind of ready-made crowd, I think, from our first gig, which was great. So that kind of helped build things, you know, because if there's people there already and then other people want to go, well, what's this all about? Do you know what I mean?
Well, of course, yeah. I'm curious because, as you said, it did start out as an 11, and then I think it whittled down to, I think that there was 9 or 7 at one point, and then eventually landed on the 5.
Yes.
What was that moment like when you got to 5? Was it kind of, there was a bit of a clarity thing there where you go, this is it, or was it just that's how it ended up? Yeah,
pretty much. I think so. That's what happened. Yeah. It was the sound started to really come together once we got down to the core 5-piece group. Yeah, absolutely.
The record at the time as well, it became a bit of a, I want to say, a monster in Australia. I think there was 6 ARIA Award nominations. There was 1 win for the band. And obviously hindsight is always 20/20, but were you surprised? I know we've been talking about the difference in the record compared to what was out at the time. Do you have any memory being surprised at the success of the record back then and thinking, why is this doing so well, but yeah, I guess wondering what was going on?
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of people were saying to us before the album was released, you know, you guys are going to go number 1. We were like, yeah, sure, whatever. Like a little indie rock band from Brisbane is going to go number 1. We just didn't really think it was possible, to be honest. We used to kind of have a little chuckle to ourselves when people would say that. But then it turned up that it happened. I think we were in Yallingup in Western Australia having dinner after soundcheck for a gig, and I think that was with Spearhead. We were touring with Spearhead, and then, you know, our Nokia bricks, which they would have been at the time, all started buzzing. And, you know, with the news that we were going to debut at number 1, we were just jumping around like lunatics. It was just an incredible feeling, you know, because we didn't write music, you know, with commercial intention behind it, you know. The fact that it kind of became that successful is kind of still a bit of a mystery to all of us, really. Except, I guess, you know, we had a lot of support early on from Triple J and other community radio stations, and, you know, we toured a lot on the back of that support. And so I suppose that's a big part of the story too, just getting out there and working hard on the road, you know. But yeah, still for that to happen was incredible to all of us.
The record, I guess, birthed some incredible pieces of music there. I think that some of those tracks that really don't go towards any kind of normal form, not even normal form, but like your standard 3 minutes, 20 seconds pop song, that those songs really have stood the test of time. I think that I still hear Release when I go out shopping to certain stores. I feel like that still plays in a lot of places. Breathe In Now and Special Ones still do really hold this, for lack of a better term, special place in people's hearts.
That's great.
Back then, Do you remember the songwriting process for the band? I imagine it was different kind of every track, but do you remember working on some of these songs and wondering whether you had caught something magic and something special in some of these brilliant tracks?
Yeah, well, I guess the first thing to say is that essentially they're all live recordings with some overdubs. So each of the bed tracks, as you call it, the rhythm tracks with the lead vocals, like a live performance of the song, they were all recorded live to tape. And I think there's something that kind of magical that you can't quite quantify that is captured when it's 5 people all making music at the same time. And I think that might be part of it, part of the reason for why it captured people's attention. And I think also, Katie's songs that you just mentioned, special ones, that was a really important song for a lot of women, I think, an empowering kind of song. And I think she wrote that when she was 19 or something. So I think it still blows her away that, it could mean so much to particularly much older women at the time too, But, I guess there's one thing, the music, but I guess all the lyrics also had some meaning too, I guess. So it wasn't like your typical pop song where it's probably, overall maybe a little more superficial. Not necessarily. Like some great pop songs are really deep, but by and large, your average pop song these days doesn't necessarily carry a lot of heavy subject matter. You know what I mean?
I would 100% agree with that. I think having a look back, and as you said, like at the time, Katie was someone who those songs, they resonated with fans. They resonated a lot with female identifying fans. And I think that I'm trying to remember which one it was. There was a countdown recently where they went back and looked through some of the hottest 100s, and it was only Katie and Janet from Spiderbait who are the only 2 Australian women on there, which is it's silly to think now because there's now so many female identifying artists that are on the charts and in the hottest 100s. But at the time, Katie and Janet were doing an incredible job of kind of spearheading that themselves.
It's crazy, hey? And neither of those ladies came from, one of the real... Well, I guess Brisbane became that way. We were part of that wave. But I guess but prior to us,
At BlueNile.com, you can find endless ways to make your moments sparkle. From classic and timeless jewelry gifts to creating the custom engagement ring of her dreams. All at prices you won't find at a traditional jeweler. And right now, you can save up to 40% on fine jewelry and 25% on engagement ring settings during the Blue Nile Anniversary Sale, going on now. Go to BlueNile.com to shop the Blue Nile Anniversary Sale and save up to 40%. That's BlueNile.com.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Brisbane and the tiny town, where are they from? Spiderbait? They came from this little town, Violet Town, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think, particularly Violet Town, they weren't necessarily known as being, music hubs to break out of either,
That's actually a very strong point, yeah.
But Brisbane did become, a really good band town, and I think we were part of that wave, that started with Powderfinger. So it's probably unfair to say that about Brisbane. But, it's still, even today, there's amazing stuff coming out of Brisbane now. But even today, though, the industry itself is still in, the people that make the decisions, they're all still in Sydney and Melbourne,
Very much so. As we were talking before we started recording, being based in Adelaide, I'm very, very well aware of that.
Yeah, exactly. Adelaide can share similar kind of scenarios in that way.
Yes, I would agree. We do our part. We have our great output for both cities, but we're still trying to.
I mean, absolutely. And that's one thing that really impressed me when we first started going to Adelaide was how amazing the live music scene was for the size of the town. Because I think it's probably about half the size of Brisbane.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's one thing that really impressed me is because when we started performing in Adelaide, we were really lucky too. One of our early gigs was like a Adelaide Fringe gig as well, which was great. That was a special performance. We had Buto dancers performing with us.
Oh, yeah.
That night. I'm not sure if you're aware of Buto. It's a Japanese origin kind of art form that developed out of, I think, as a reaction initially to, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Very interesting art form. But then, remember playing in pubs like the Seven Stars, I think. Is that right?
Yes, yeah.
And the Austral.
Yep, still there, still trading.
Great. And other pubs like that, working our way up towards getting to the Gov, It was fantastic. And I was always really impressed with the live music scene in Adelaide. I was like, wow, this is a really healthy music scene for a town of this size. It's amazing, pushing above its weight, basically. That's what I've always thought.
That's very kind of you. We do seem to do all right. We've recently had some new venues open up, which you'll be able to check out if you've got that spare time later this week when you are here in Adelaide, which we'll get to in a little bit. Very quickly before we move on to the tour, which is why we are here to speak today, I just want to touch on very quickly something that you just mentioned before. I guess the subject matter of some of the songs that might be in current music and some of the songs that George was tackling back then, because I feel that you guys were looking at corporate greed, you were looking at climate change, you were talking about the not so lovely aspects of relationships, which has been covered in song before, but I feel was done in a really unique way. And I feel that a lot of those topics still resonate well today. Unfortunately, we're still dealing with climate change, corporate greed, everything else.
I know. When I perform the song "Breaking It Slowly," it's like there's a kind of almost a tinge of sadness, because it's almost like the song is, more relevant or more apparent now than maybe it even was 20 years ago.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Have you found that now performing some of these songs already and kind of revisiting it, that they have either taken on not a new meaning, but they've taken on something that is still kind of resonating, still happening now? Absolutely.
And it's funny too. I did last year. I did an amazing little mini tour around Queensland, celebrating the 50th anniversary of Marvin Gaye's album "What's Going On." And he was really, looking back, it's 50 years old last year. He was so far ahead of all of his other contemporaries. And I even include, great socially aware songwriters like John Lennon and stuff, particularly when it comes to the environment, And that's like, a lot of people were singing about the struggles of African Americans, at that time. And I think he did that so well, and also talking about Vietnam and the war and the impact of that on the society back home. But his discussions about the climate and about the environment back then, and talking about ecology, it's just mind-blowing. He was so far ahead of his time. So it's humbling if you get the chance to write something that years later, is in some kind of similar vein. I would never attest to have ever written anything as good as Marvin Gaye, but yeah. Anyway.
Look, I don't want to get myself in trouble with too many people of the music kind of purists, that I feel that George's Polyserena does hold up to. We won't say it's the same as Marvin Gaye, What's Going On, but there are messages for each generation that I feel still kind of hold up and still ring true.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much, mate. That's wonderful.
Now, as we mentioned, you are currently on tour. You've already played, yourself and Katie are touring Polyserena around the country at the moment in celebration of its 20th anniversary. You mentioned Dexter before, who is Katie's son, your nephew who's joined you on the drums, and I'm trying to think, I think it was, who have we got? Brendan and Steele also joining you on the tour as well.
Yes.
What have these shows been like so far? How's it been revisiting some of these songs?
It's been a really life-affirming experience. It really has. It's a great bond. Like because Katie's done a lot of gigs in the past with Steele and Dexter, because they're the rhythm section for her Katie Noonan trio band, and so they already had that great connection. And then Brandon worked with Katie on Joni Mitchell tribute show, which was great. So it's a really great bunch of musicians that have come together, and it feels, it's 3/5 family, so it just has that really nice kind of energy on stage. It's beautiful. It really is. Very, very special experience.
I can imagine that it does have a unique quality to it that you're kind of experiencing. Well, as you said previously, there were a different set of twins. Now it's kind of another version of like a family band in a way. Yeah. For Dexter, because again, talking about the song mechanics of George, some of these songs were quite, I don't want to say difficult, but like there's different time signatures, there's changes, there's all these kind of things going on at once. How did he find taking to this music? Has he mastered it so far?
Yeah, he's an absolute gun. He's an absolute monster. A woman called Angela Fabian, who's a dear friend of mine, she became a finalist on The Voice a few years back. We were at the Pride Festival watching Katie's trio, and she said, this is what I miss about drummers. This is what I miss about the United States, drummers who are in the pocket. She's saying that about my little nephew. And I'm like, wow. Just blown away. Yeah. Yeah, he's an absolute gun. He's killing it.
That's awesome to hear. As I mentioned, there are a few more shows, I guess, coming up this week. We've got Adelaide, and I think that there's Wollongong and Sydney over the next few weeks.
That's right.
How are you feeling about the last run of shows? So wrapping up, it's only a short celebration, but how are you feeling about wrapping up those shows and then kind of, I guess, not putting them to rest once again, but having this run completed?
Yeah, well, it's amazing. I'm sure there'll be a slight tinge of sadness on the last night, because it's so much fun to be able to just do this, It's, are they 12 inches or 7 inches? Am I getting a perspective thing?
They are 12 inches.
Oh, yeah, right. Okay. It's a distance thing. Cool. So where are you doing this from? Is this your home, or is this a shop?
This is our little home office / studio.
I love it. That's fantastic. So cool to see records up on the wall.
You've given me the perfect segue. I, as of I think a few weeks ago, I put in my pre-order for the Polyserena LP that is coming out in November. I believe this is the first time it's been pressed on vinyl.
That's right. And I can inform you that it sounds amazing. It actually sounds much better than the CD, as long as you've got a decent system, of course, because that's the only thing with vinyl is it's an expensive art form if you want it to sound really good. But then it does sound really good. If you're willing to spend a little bit of money, it sounds incredible. So I've got a mate who's got an incredible audiophile system and these ridiculous headphones that are like supposedly the best in the world or whatever. So he's a radiologist, you see, so he can afford these things. Anyway, I listened to it on that, and I was absolutely blown away. Like the separation between the instruments, you could hear all the separation. I always felt like the final mixes that we were hearing in the mixing room, when we got the CD back, it didn't quite sound the same. It's kind of like more mashed together because, we originally recorded to tape and then it's transferred to 24-bit audio. right, for the final masters, and CDs are 16-bit and also 44 kilohertz. So it is kind of like a more compressed format in the first place. You know, it's not.
Yeah.
It's obviously much better than MP3, but it is still a compressed format. So to hear this music now in an uncompressed format on vinyl, it's just fantastic. So yeah, if you have a decent system, and it's 45 too for all the audiophiles out there, 45 up, double vinyl. Yes, it really does sound amazing. I think, you know, we were lucky, I guess, maybe this time round to have been involved in a major label with this particular re-release, because I think I've heard that the place where the mastering was done in Czechoslovakia, you know, can be a bit hit and miss, like a lot of these places. But apparently, you know, they have their A team, their B team, you know, right down to their G team, I think. And okay, that might be an exaggeration, but I think we obviously got the A team or someone that really cared about the music in you know, doing the vinyl master for this re-release. So yep,
It is very exciting. We will make sure that the link to the pre-order site is included into the show notes of this podcast, so anyone listening to this conversation can go ahead and do themselves a favour and pre-order the record.
That's right. And if you pre-order, sorry, go on.
No, you go.
Oh, if you pre-order the record at the show, and then you show our merchandise seller the receipt, then you can get a signed art card, which is basically the front cover of the record, which we'll sign for you on the night.
That is brilliant. Because, yeah, we'll make sure that is known.
Unfortunately, they couldn't get the vinyl ready in time for the tour.
Look, again, some people I feel have been waiting years for this, and so I think the arrival of the vinyl is that people are happy enough. They're not too fussed on they're happy to wait a few more weeks if it means that they get it in their hands.
Yes, you've been waiting 20 years, so another few weeks doesn't matter.
Tyrone, usually would ask our guests like what they're currently listening to, if there is anything that is on high rotation for yourself at the moment.
Oh, interesting. Well, lately it's been more retrospective stuff, because Katie mentioned in an interview that she thinks that the band ELO, Electric Light Orchestra, is part of the DNA of our band. So I've been going back and having a retrospective, because I know, like, they're a big influence on me, but I didn't necessarily see how much of an influence they were on my songwriting or my tone selection or part ideas or arrangement ideas. Excuse me. And things like that. So I've been listening to a lot of ELO lately and noticing, oh gosh, okay. I think being able to step back, be a bit more objective and realise, yes, I think she might be right. I just couldn't see it.
Yeah, I'm like, in real time, I'm trying to think of some ELO songs and apply them to George tracks, and I can kind of see that there might be some certain facets or even sounds there, but that's a very interesting point.
Yeah, well, people who don't really know the band will probably just know the more kind of cheesy pop hits, you know. But, yeah, some of their songs are just incredible, you know, amazing. And the arrangements are just breathtaking, you know. Genius. It's pop genius, a lot of it. Yeah. Anyway.
Look, I very much appreciate that insight. I think going back and might have a look at some of those deeper cuts of ELO this evening or later tonight when going through the editing of this podcast.
Start at the first record, man. The first record will really spin you out, because it's like they were definitely like an art rock, you know, prog ensemble basically at that point. But then it's really interesting. There are these little bits where Jeff Lynne goes into, like, you know, some kind of semblance of a song, and you can see the kind of the embryo of his songwriting kind of starting amongst all this weird weird time, kind of like all this kind of weird stuff. Then comes this tiny little pop moment. And you see, there it is. There's the determination of what's to come. It's really interesting. Yeah.
That's incredible. I think I will start with the debut record and then work my way up from there. But Tyrone, thank you very much for being on the podcast today. I do appreciate it. Congratulations again on the 20th anniversary of Polyserena and the tour, which is continuing through. We'll put all the details in the podcast show notes. But thank you again for coming on.
No worries.
And that's our show. A massive thank you to Tyrone Noonan for his time. Tyrone and Katie will be playing shows over the next few weeks, and we've left links in the show notes if you'd like to catch the tour or pre-order the Polyserena vinyl. We also want to give a huge shout out to Nicole and Vanessa at Revolutions PR for helping out with today's interview. If you like this show, please subscribe wherever you get your pods and stay up to date when new episodes are released. We release new shows each Wednesday and Friday morning, and we now have a Patreon, which you can find within the show notes of this episode. You can follow the playlist profile on Spotify, and you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Until next week, cheers.
The most powerful designer drugs are the digital ones we use daily. And we get high off them. One touch, tap, like, scroll at a time. Just like tech creators want us to. Use digital without digital using you. Learn more at sync.ithra.com.